When people stop me in the street, they're either lost, they're looking for a few bucks, they mistake me for someone who owes them a few bucks, or if they watch this show, they want to know where I ride, where the good roads are. Now, you can ask Google for advice, but Google doesn't know everything. In this episode of El Camino, by semi-popular demand, I'm going to take you on a few of my favorite roads. El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Importations TBO, distributor of power sports parts and accessories. And by GP Bikes, Canada's power sports authority. Welcome to El Camino. When I have a day to ride, even just half a day to ride, I fall into a routine as familiar as slipping into an old pair of jeans. Often, I don't even think where I'm going. I just go. And more often than not, I go the same way, on the same roads. I'll add variations, of course, but they're minor. A road I traveled from east to west last time, I'll travel from west to east this time. But the same old routine just doesn't cut it for the last ride of the season. My last ride of the year has to get me through the drudgery of winter. And that calls for creativity. But how do you reinvigorate riding when the only options are roads you've already ridden, time and time again? That was my challenge this fall. It's the challenge every fall. When I moved to Simcoe County just before the dreaded pandemic, after having lived in Toronto for decades, one of the joys was finding new roads to ride. I weaved and bobbed my way through the countryside without any idea of where I was going. I got lost, often, intentionally. Well, not always intentionally, but the point was this. I wanted to escape the tyranny of the Google map, which tells us in advance which roads are twisty and which roads have been drawn with a ruler. I wanted to rediscover surprise. I'm fine with disappointment. I can live with that. I just wanted to have a few of those aha moments when you find a gem of a road that you just didn't expect. And I found them, a bunch of them. But then, as it always happens, I fell into routine. I got lazy. I'm determined to make this fall ride different. Even though I know the roads like the palm of my hand, I do what I always do when I'm seeking riding inspiration. I open a paper map. Now, don't confuse me for one of those people who's afraid of newfangled technology like, the typewriter or the fax machine. That's not me. But a map opened up on a kitchen table has promise. You get a sense of an entire trip in one view. Something you can't get by scrolling on a phone. And like it always does, looking at a map gets me thinking, what if I combine a few of my favorite roads with some unexpected roads? This gets me excited. But then I hit the wall. What exactly is an unexpected road? Where are the roads I dismissed, for whatever reason, when I moved up here from the city? For a few days I rolled the question around. Are the roads I've been avoiding without realizing I've been avoiding them? And then one day, while performing maintenance on a light aircraft, a light bulb goes off. I've found my answer. In the middle of the summer, when tourists take over, the natural tendency for a motorcyclist is to head to remote areas, of which we have plenty in Simcoe. But riding in the fall, when the summer tourists have gone, opens up avenues a motorcyclist typically dismisses. I go back inside the house. I open my map again. I'm onto something. My eyes scan the entire region, and I begin to see roads that can link one to another, roads entirely new to me. But every trip needs an anchor, a place to go where you know what you're going to find. For me, that means the tour of Simcoe starts in the village of Creemore. a town sidestepped by ugliness, a town without golden arches, whoppers, or teen burgers. Creemore, for out-of-towners, is known for one thing: beer, one of the first microbreweries in Ontario. Creemore's brewery, though it's now owned by a major brewery, is still on the main street of town. It even has its own beer store. Creemore is also a town with expensive Scandinavian furniture, fine restaurants, flowing waters, and the blood of life itself. Good coffee. I hit the Bank Cafe, but the town has plenty of great cafes. You really can't go wrong. Not only is the coffee excellent at the Bank, but the Cubano sandwich is sublime. Do yourself a favor. Have one. With the body sufficiently fueled and the mind fully caffeinated, it's time to hit the road. Road number 9. Heading west from Creemore and rising and falling with the Niagara Escarpment, number 9 is legendary with motorcyclists and bicyclists alike. For good reason. My favorite section is where the road parallels the Mad River and where cottages are reached by narrow footbridges that span rushing waters. Perfection. If road number 9 satisfies my desire to work an old favorite into the mix, my next choice of road is decidedly unusual for me. Cutting cross country to the legendary summer beach town of Wasaga Beach, where, at this time of the year, the beach is pretty much my own, I latch onto River Road East that winds up the shore of Georgian Bay. This is my stroke of genius. The road is always charming, but in summer, it's full of beach balls and people carting canoes to the shoreline. But now, in fall, with cottages closed, and with the only traffic the occasional contractor rushing to get a roof on, or an addition finished, it becomes a great motorcycle road. Not a fast one, mind you, but that makes it even better. After all, what's the rush? All that's waiting for me at home is winter. Riding up the coast past ma and pa ice cream stands reminds me of places my father took me when I was a kid. Like the French fry stand at Oak Lake, run by a burly ex-CFL lineman. The fries he made remain to this day the best food I've ever eaten. Michelin star worthy dining. Of course, that's not actually true. The fries were frozen, overcooked, and the oil in the fryer was likely never, ever changed. But when you came out of a cold lake and shivered your way up to the counter, the smell was sublime, and the taste, well, that stayed with me for a lifetime. This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Welcome back to El Camino. There's something about an end-of-season ride on a perfect fall day that gives a rider the sense of getting away with something. Riding in the fall reminds me of my favorite New Yorker magazine cartoon. A writer is sitting at his desk. Behind him stands the Grim Reaper. The writer looks up to the Grim Reaper and says, "Thank God you're here. I can't do anything without a deadline." It's this deadline that gives our last ride of the year its power. There is no tomorrow in riding terms, at least not for another 6 months or so. Now that's, of course, providing that the Grim Reaper doesn't visit you over the winter. And that's a bit dark. As motorcyclists in a cold country, we suffer. First world suffering, fair enough, but suffering nonetheless. Think of it this way. Unlike the fortunate ones who live in southern Spain or sunny California, The northern motorcyclist, us, spends more time thinking about riding than actually riding. That's why we're philosophical about these things. We don't get to do it every day, all year round. Perhaps it's why you're watching El Camino right now. Now, where was I? On I ride up the shoreline of Georgian Bay, through the settlements of New Wasaga Beach, Allenwood Beach, Woodland Beach, Edmore Beach, Danley Beach, and Wendake Beach. Do you sense a theme here? The bike I'm riding is perhaps the perfect companion to this kind of getaway. And to be clear, no one's paying me to say this. It's a Honda Transalp. It's a nameplate unfamiliar to many in North America, but in Europe, the Transalp is an institution, a name as well known as Honda's Goldwing is here in the Americas. And for good reason. The Transalp isn't the biggest or the flashiest. In fact, it's entirely flashless. So much so that it's nearly invisible beneath you. Because unlike the Ducati we revived in the previous episode of El Camino, the Transalp may just be the ultimate stealth motorcycle. The Transalp is nearly inaudible. No matter how enthusiastic you are with the throttle, you can hardly hear it running. Now, you loud pipe people, I know what you're thinking. That for a motorcycle to be charismatic, it needs to buck and belch and bellow its arrival. I get your point. But that's not what a ride like this calls for. I love Lemmy Kilmister as much as the next guy. But do you really want to listen to Motorhead at Mach 1 at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning? You do? A fall ride like this is a time to be contemplative, to think about the season just past, and to think about past seasons long ago past. Okay, maybe I'm a bit more melancholic than you are, but even the most upbeat rider will confess to having a different mindset as fall rolls around. And along this road, where you expect to hear the sounds of summer, yelling kids, yelling parents, grandparents who've heard it all and just want to have a nap, to shut the key off to the Honda and to hear nothing is a little jarring. But it's really beautiful. It's like the world took a day off and you're the only one left on Earth. Whispering my way up the coast, the Transalp with its upright seating position and squishy seat doesn't make me want to duck my head and make time. It makes me want to slow down, to smell the sweetness and the moistness of the earth in fall. Oh, and the sawdust too, from all those last-minute renovations. Have you ever put a roof on in the fall? It's really stressful. At Bomb Beach, I stop and plan my next move, an easy cross-country trek northeast to one of the true gems of the region, Owenda National Park. It's spectacular and wild in any season, but in the fall it comes alive, and the roads within the park are excellent so long as you mind the wet leaves and the posted limit. And as much as I love a good ride, I also love getting off the bike and stretching my legs and looking for the perfect flat stone to skip across the water. Not that I have much of an aptitude for doing that. Which brings me to an underappreciated aspect of fall. No mosquitoes. I hate them. I really do. This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Welcome back to El Camino. After I book into my hotel in the town of Midland and freshen up with a hot shower, I head out to the Queen's Quay British pub and restaurant in nearby Victoria Harbour. It's a spectacular find. The food is far better than any pub has a right to serve. And even on a weeknight, the place is bustling. It's more than a pub. It's a neighborhood hub. I enter my hotel room back in Midland, flick on the TV, and find sweet perfection. A Sam Peckinpah movie. Bloody Sam, the critics called the director. Peckinpah never disappoints. Actually, that's not true. The Getaway isn't a great movie, but it's got Steve McQueen, who won't act, opposite Ally McGraw, who can't act. But it doesn't matter. Things get shot, cars get crashed, and McQueen scowls into the middle distance. The last scene I remember before I fall asleep is the pair of them lying in bed, covered in stolen money. The dream. 8 hours later, I wake. The sheets hardly have a wrinkle in them. I'm ready to go. I expect a chilly morning, but the sun still has yesterday afternoon's warmth. After a quick stop east of Midland to admire the Martyr Shrine in the Y Marsh, I continue eastbound on Highway 12, then head northbound on Highway 400. I exited Exchange 162 and head eastbound on number 34. Clouds have moved in and the weather turned cool. Not uncomfortably cool, not even unseasonably cool, just cool. And then it happens. It's important to make the distinction between the fall we imagine and the fall that actually exists. Imaginary fall weather is warm days with sunshine and crisp, fresh nights. Not to say that those days don't happen, they just don't happen that often. Because, as we know, fall can be rainy 6-degree days with a wind that cuts through you like a chainsaw. Every fall, I go for a ride. Some of these rides have been unpleasant. Snow in the mountains, cold sheets of rain that begin long before dawn and that trickle down the windows of your budget motel, telling you that it's going to be a long, miserable day. I think of a ride from southern Pennsylvania back to Ontario one October, long time ago. We'd visited the architectural marvel of falling water, Frank Lloyd Wright's modernist masterpiece. The temperature for the trip had been perfect for riding, kind of like room temperature. But then things got ugly. The sweet southern breeze departed, and in its place came a howling north wind. First, the rains, cruel and falling horizontal to the earth. We holed up in a motel like fugitives from the law and waited it out. Huge mistake. When the rains made a seamless transition to snow, we knew we were doomed. And this wasn't like a flake or two of snow. This was real snow, real accumulation. With mild temperatures days away and with jobs to return to, we had no choice. We had to ride on. I'll spare you most of the drama, but I will say that hundreds of miles on greasy roads caused me a friendship and nearly a finger. And unlike those stories you love to tell because time has softened the edges, this isn't one of those stories. It was torturous, every last mile. But today is not one of those days. As I turn onto number 34, I hit peak fall. The pavement is twisty and warm. It's the day we live for, the very day when the leaves are at their glorious and garish best. I don't care about tomorrow, not with a day like today. I'm in the moment. Number 34 turns to number 17, and I wind my way into Big Chute, home of the Big Chute Marine Railway. It's easy to imagine if you see the photos, but hard to describe in words, but I'll give it a shot. Think of a giant rail car that rises 60 feet up a hill and that carries boats in kind of a sling thing. I don't think that makes any sense. Find the pictures, they're online. The sun and the wind and the joy of riding work me into a furious hunger. So I make for the town of Coldwater and M's Cafe. Coldwater is the kind of quirky little town that's worthy of a trip all on its own. There are some fine junk shops, which are far worthier of your time than antique shops. But you know that. With apologies to my mother, who really wanted me to adopt her Wedgwood collection. After lunch at M's, which seemed to contain the entire population of the town, we head for Quayle's Brewery. I do love a good beer, and the microbrewery revolution has been a revelation. No longer are we limited to mass market mediocrity. We can buy beer where we live or where we ride. After an hour strolling around the grounds at Quayle's, we pack our saddlebags with suds and ride south to the town of Orillia. This segment is brought to you by GP Bikes. Welcome back to El Camino. From Orillia, I travel a great road to Barrie. Just an hour north of Toronto, Barrie is a metropolis in the making, but not so bustling that a charming little road can't wind its way into its northeast reaches. Number 20 begins in Hawkstone to the northeast and weaves through Simcoe Side, Palm Beach, Parkside Beach, Oro Beach, and Shanty Bay. With the city of Barrie in the western distance and the fresh waters of Lake Simcoe to the south, it was the ideal way to end our fall tour. All of us, and I'm no different, can fall into the belief that it's necessary to travel far afield to find good roads to ride. But that's a fallacy. Sometimes all that's necessary is that you reframe the region in which you live, or a region that's close to where you live. The key, if there's such a thing, is to link the expected with the unexpected, the familiar with the unfamiliar. Don't fall into the same old habits. Need proof of concept? Come visit me in my backyard. Thank you for watching El Camino. Clothing was provided by Importations TBO. El Camino has been brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Wherever life takes you, Best Western is there. Scorpion, we live in our protection. And by Spring Toronto Motorcycle Super Show.